to that, he can then negotiate a sign and trade to another team. The other alternative is signing a deal as a free agent. Maybe you sign a max deal with I don't know, the Spurs or a team that could clear enough cap space to sign him, and maybe you play until December 15th. Right, and then after December 15th, the teams are allowed to trade players that they just signed, right? So you do a little stint in maybe San Antonio, maybe Detroit, wherever it is, with the agreement that once the moratorium passes and you can trade him, you move him to that team that you want to be on.
So that's by the middle of next week that Kyrie Irving has to decide on his player option. The draft, of course, coming up on Thursday, and all these questions remain for Brooklyn. Earlier on ESPN Radio, our Sarah Spain.
I would love to see what messing this up looks like if what we've already seen hasn't been messing this up. And I don't mean to throw shade, but you recruit players to come play with Brooklyn. You have defensive ratings that are historically bad. You lose one of the big three after accomplishing nothing in year one, midway through year two. You got a guy who just doesn't play or tell the team that he's going to show up when he is healthy. When he's not healthy, he's sitting for injury. He won't get vaccinated. They get swept by the Celtics. And if you disrupt this and screw it up, it would be a tragedy? What is there to screw up? What a terribly disappointing superstar alliance this has been. And I can't believe anyone thinks the answer is more guarantees for Kyrie when he will not guarantee that he'll put on a uniform and play for you.
So there are many questions around Kyrie Irving with the Nets. Let's go around the horn.
He could obviously opt out and walk, but there aren't a lot of teams that have money, so sign and trade would be the best option. Are you gonna try to get Russell Westbrook? You're gonna get John Wall? I don't think the Nets would do that. You know, somebody like Jalen Brunson with the Dallas Mavericks, I think they'd love to do. I think Kyrie will be back. I don't think there's enough options out there for him. I think he wants to be back. He just wants a lot of money and a lot of years, and the Nets aren't going to give it to him.
Rube Gutierrez.
Yeah, I believe he wants to be back too, but this wasn't built around necessarily Kyrie. It was built around Kevin Durant, who accepted Kyrie as his teammate, and they would build that. And so this is still about Kevin Durant and getting a championship built around him. And he's in his later 30s and probably, doesn't have the same window that Kyrie has. So they have to look at this honestly. We've already taken a big challenge or a big risk with the Ben Simmons acquisition. We don't know what that's going to be. You're the Brooklyn Nets. So they have to have something stable there that is not Kyrie Irving, and he's the opposite of stable. So if you want to throw out trade ideas, if he, signs it for 1 year and can be traded, like maybe Miami, there's, video out there on Twitter about Jimmy Butler saying Kyrie's his favorite player.
Oh, okay, maybe Miami.
Something involving Tyler Hero, maybe a Kyle Lowry situation.
Say the word Tyler Hero for Kyrie Irving? Israel, really? Okay.
I mean, I'm not pitching
You're
that.
Sweating
I'm
just
saying
you're
something
going to do
that
it.
has been spoken.
David Dennis Jr.
Yes.
I mean, they could also, trade Kyrie Irving to Philadelphia for James Harden if we're just throwing out trades out there and making deals like this. Have some fun.
We could just keep on doing that every 2 months. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think, this is about Kevin Durant, like you said, but this is about Kevin Durant sort of realizing what he has and how tethered he is to Kyrie Irving. He left to join the Kyrie Irving that averaged 30 points in those last 3 games in 2016, who made the most clutch shot ever. But what he got is a Kyrie Irving that's missed 40% of his games and who averaged 15 points in the last 3 games against the Celtics. And if KD needs to be honest about the decisions that he's making and what team he can build around himself, they need to explore some options about what to do with Kyrie.
And Kevin Durant, of course, went to Brooklyn to win championships, teaming up with Kyrie Irving. The Nets are reportedly not keeping KD in the dark about the Kyrie situation. Sports Center all night, ESPN Radio. Swimming's world governing body, FINA, restricting the participation of transgender athletes. Major decision over the weekend. ESPN's Dan Murphy.
We have to protect the rights of all our athletes to compete, but we also have to protect competitive fairness at our events.
The International Olympic Committee asked all of its sports federations last November to establish their own guidelines for transgender athletes competing in women's sports. Swimming has been at the center of a debate between inclusion and competitive fairness due to the recent success of collegiate swimmer Leah Thomas.
Thomas wins the NCAA championship.
People will say, oh, she just transitioned, so she would have an advantage, so she could win. I transitioned to be happy, to be true to myself.
FINA's new policy, which excludes swimmers who transition to being a woman after puberty, will make Thomas ineligible to compete in international events. Three-time gold medalist and women's sports advocate Nancy Hogshead McCarr says the policy is a good first step to solving a complicated issue.
I like it that they drew the line right at male puberty, right? When somebody's going to be going through it, because that's what the science says. I'm in favor of following the science.
But advocates such as Ann Lieberman from Athlete Ally say FINA's new requirements and the testing needed to enforce them are discriminatory, and that the plan is based more on politics than on science.
I think many of us in the community are shocked that a policy with such little rigor and lack of transparency could be passed so quickly like this, and that FINA has just so clearly allowed political pressure to force their hand.
What FINA has done is step one. So step one is locking down the girls and women's category. We recognize there are more sports, and then we do have to figure out what's the best way to include transgender, both women and men.
FINA's leaders say they hope to make a place for trans swimmers in the next 6 months by creating an open division where athletes of any gender can compete.
The open category is entirely unrealistic and using a separate but equal mindset. The reality is that transgender women and girls are wildly unrepresented in sports in general, so there will not even be enough people to fill that category.
Swimming is among the first major sport to set its new policy for trans athletes. Hogshead McCarr said she's hopeful that other sports will listen to current and former athletes when making their rules. While Lieberman said they're concerned that swimming could set bad precedent and urged federations to closely follow the framework for inclusion established by the IOC. For ESPN, I'm Dan Murphy.
The new policy for FINA took effect on Monday. Invited again? Declined again. That's next. Sports Center all night. It's ESPN Radio.
Wake up and get up with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
You know how bad that is, though, when you're the number one pick like I was and you had Neil O'Donnell at quarterback as a rookie opposed to a Joe Burrow? That's like, come on, man. Seriously?
GJ and Max. Weekdays starting at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN2. More Sports Center all night. Next.